Hey, you've made it to SprySpace, where people managing social media accounts come for community. This year, our focus is social media for good. Together, we can work to make social media a landscape for healthy online communities to grow. Sound good? Then come along with us on the SprySpace podcast, where we share what we know, learn what we don't, and strive to make social media better for us all. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SprySpace podcast. I'm Lacey, and today I've got Adrienne with me. How are you doing today, Adrienne?
I am doing great.
Well, we are wrapping up our month of content around basically like summer school, right? We looked at some of our most popular content over the last few years and decided to revisit it, refresh it, revitalize it, whatever you want to say, we're doing it again. So, this week, Adrienne and I spent some time focusing on the most popular or second most popular blog post that we have done in the last 2 years around the $1.80 Instagram strategy by Gary Vee. So we're going to get into the meat of that. But before we do, let's focus on social media for good for a minute. Tell me something that you've seen on social media recently that's brought you joy.
Yeah, I recently discovered... I love Instagram. I love the internet. I love learning new things. I have all these like different niche things I'm curious about. One thing that I am really curious about lately is home decoration, home renovation. I'm not renovating my own house, but for some, that's why HGTV did so well, right? It's kind of like your aspirational dream to whatever. So a little bit about me. My father's family is from Boston, Massachusetts. They've lived there for generations. And anyway, so I follow quite a few people from the East Coast just to kind of, I went to college out there. So I follow a bunch of people out there just to kind of feel that familiar and hear those accents, Mm-hmm. But so anyway, so I found this account called the Renovation Husbands, and it's this couple, two husbands, a gay couple, and they basically took a Victorian house in the middle of Dorchester, Massachusetts, which is south of Boston, and they are renovating it, and it's freaking gorgeous. It's so pretty. Like, their style is just like, they have really interesting color combos, and they're just a great like partnership, and they have very practical tips, but they also have they're charming and funny, and they're younger, they're millennials, so they have they kind of do reels and do different trending internet shticks. So they're just joyful and wonderful. And then the other thing that I love about this account is that A, it's huge. It has lots of supportive people. And B, I was thinking about it. I mean, I'm in my 30s, and I was just like, man, if this account was just like, this account couldn't even really exist 10 years ago. Like, I just don't see it really existing. How kind of quickly we've come to accepting all sorts of people doing whatever it is they want to do. And so, I just was really thinking about that. I was thinking, man, this account is A, awesome, and B, just, they're just like a normal couple, and you read all the comments. It's not, no one's focusing on their sexuality or the fact that they're two husbands, and they have excellent taste in paint and all that. So anyway, that's mine for the day, the week.
I think about that sometimes with like Glennon Doyle and Abby Wambach, we've got this like Glennon Doyle started out as a Christian author, and then Abby Wambach is this U.S. Nationals soccer player, and they're a couple now, and they have, a podcast, and they've got their channels that they're on, and and it's really neat to see how time and space and technology has just created this environment where we can learn from anybody, and we can see people in so much more of their wholeness, when they control the outlet that their media is coming out of. We get to see so much more of what and who people really are, and not so much their makeup team and their studio team and their agent
Yeah.
and
Imagine, okay, we're diving into like kind of doing a left turn here, but imagine if Britney Spears had been able to cultivate her own self outside of what, you know, her handlers and the music industry were just like, you know, putting her in this sexy diva box as like an 18-year-old woman. You know,
Yes.
imagine if she was, if that wasn't what happened. And you know, and so anyway, yeah, it's damaging. It is damaging having overlords telling you what to do and how to be.
And it is part of the reason why we do focus on the concept of social media for good, because there, you know, so many people get turned off to social media because there's a lot of bad. However, it is a tool that has provided so much more connectivity between people when used properly, and I'm so grateful for it.
Me too. Me too.
All right, so let's talk $1.80 Instagram strategy. So,
Okay.
Adrienne, can you start us off by explaining what the actual $1.80 Instagram strategy is?
Okay. So the $1.80 Instagram strategy is quite simply where you go into Instagram, you open up your search page, you decide on your top 10 hashtags that you want to be involved in, present in, you know, known for. So you have to pick 10 hashtags. So first you got to do your hashtag research, and you pick, so you have your 10 hashtags, you open up search, and then you search for each 10 hashtags, and then in the results, in the search results, you find the top 9. So, you know, in Instagram, everything is in a three across grid. So you have the top 9 3x3 posts, and you go into those posts and you like and comment on every single post. And the comment needs to be more than just a heart or a smiley face. It needs to be an engaging comment. And so you essentially leave your 2 cents on 90 posts.
Every day.
Every day. So
Every day.
every day for 7 days, and see what happens. And so that's the experiment.
So about 2 years ago, I think, Adrienne, you were in charge of it then too. So
Yes.
about 2 years ago, you ran this experiment for Spry, and we ended up, what were the results that we got 2 years ago when we ran this experiment?
Okay, so we were at the time, I believe we were about maybe 300, 400 followers at that time. We gained 150 followers over the 7 days, and then we lost 40 followers. So overall, we gained 100 followers, which was a big bump in followers, because I mean, we did start with, I think it was, I can't, you know, of course, in our blog post, it doesn't say, I can't quickly see how many we started with, but it was a big increase over what we had previously, for sure.
So it's so interesting to think, you know, 2 years ago where Instagram as a platform was compared to where it is now. And so I know that you and I were both pretty excited about the idea of refreshing this, because people still talk about this experiment. This $1.80 Instagram strategy is still a pretty highly recommended strategy for people. I mean, it came from Gary Vee, and so, you know, there's an entire cult following, all hail Gary Vee. So when we came into it and started doing it this last month, let's talk about how it went. So you went and got started like you were going to start doing this $1.80 Instagram strategy, and tell me how it went for you.
Well, you know, let's just go back to the record, right? I'm in Slack. I open up Slack here, and let me just read to you what I wrote to you when I was doing it at 9:40 p.m. I wrote to Lacey. I said, I don't think I can do the $1.80 experiment anymore. I've been online well for over an hour, and I can't. Let's see. My other notes are... so I just was like, I can't do this.
Because I remember the day before that, before the official give up, I was talking to you because you and I were going to split this. So you were going to do a few days of it, and then I was going to do a few days of it. Mm-hmm. And I asked you how it went, and you're like, oh, went great. I was like, how long did it take you? You're like, not that long. You know, I maybe spent an hour, and I was like,
Really?
And we talked through it a little bit, and you're like, yep, I did my 9 comments. And I was like, did you say 9?
Yeah,
So,
90.
and then we like did the math together.
Yeah, what I had done is I was a bad scientist. This is bad. My mom is a scientist. I come from a long line of researchers. She would be so upset. I did not reread the experiment outline of how the experiment was supposed to be conducted. I did not read it. I just was like, I know what I'm doing. Tra-la-la, here we go. And I literally just picked one hashtag and commented 9 comments on that hashtag. I forgot that you have to pick 9 hashtags. And then when I started doing that, it quickly unraveled. And do you want me to tell you why it unraveled?
I do.
Okay. So first of all, as we said before, this does take a lot of time. If you think about, 90 comments, if you spend 1 minute per comment, that's 90 minutes. That's an hour and a half. So you can easily spend well over 2 hours, maybe 3 hours doing this every single day. Thinking back on the first time I did this, I was personally, I was very involved in Instagram. I mean, more than I am now. I was maybe borderline addicted to it. And so I was on Instagram constantly. So it's kind of not weird for me to be on Instagram for that long. Mm-hmm. So there's that. And number 2, the way the algorithm has changed. I mean, the algorithms change constantly all the time, over time. So over 2 years, basically what happened is instead of searching for a hashtag and finding the first 9 and then going in and commenting on all 9, now the algorithm has changed so that, and in the kind of the customs and the culture of Instagram has also changed a little bit.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, when we've introduced stories, we've introduced reels, and that didn't exist then.
exactly. Yeah. So, I would search for a hashtag, the top 9 posts would come up, and it was weird. So, you'd go to a post and it was a picture of, maybe it was a hashtag female entrepreneurship, for instance, and you see one with a portrait of a lovely lady, and you go in, and the thing about Instagram and doing this experiment properly is you have to actually use your brain. You can't just go in and spam things.
You can't autopilot it. Mm-mm.
You cannot. You have to look at their picture, read the caption. If the caption is part of another series of captions, you have to go into their profile and read their profile and see what they're all about. And then, by the time you do all that, oftentimes there's a lot of offers. There's a lot of kind of call to action to sign up for group coaching classes. A lot of these people have created their own and cultivated their own audiences, so that if I would come in and just randomly be like, sounds great, I love it, it would just seem really weird. So what happened is, the top 9 posts in the grid or in the search turned into, I had to literally pick 9. I would just have to scroll through and find 9. And just the process of even finding 9 pieces of content that made sense to comment on, and then reading them and then making smart comments about them, it took so long. It took so long. And so it took so long. And then that leads me back to the other point that I alluded to earlier, which is, what's the point of this? I mean,
right.
We did get some eyeballs on our content for sure, and we did get some more followers. However, just talking and making comments on one piece of content, but not following somebody for a long amount of time, or for a longer piece of time, and engaging and knowing what their story is and knowing what they're about, and it's very surface level, and it just started to seem super spammy to me, even though I'm not a robot, a spam robot. I started to feel like a spam robot was what I started to feel like.
I would say another thing that feeds into this too is, at Spry, it's only been about almost a year that we've kind of had this focus on social media for good, where we have internally really focused on our own social media mental health. You know, it was last fall of 2020 that we watched, or was it? The time is gone for me. I think I'm right. Where we watched The Social Dilemma, and decided as a group that we were really going to start focusing on our mental health and putting in some boundaries of ourselves on how we were going to interact with social media. And so the algorithms have changed, the platform has changed, but also our internal focus and care of ourselves around our social media use has changed. So it makes sense why you were digging deeper into like, why am I even doing, like, am I building any relationships? I'm wasting my time. This is way too much time on social media.
Oh, for sure. I think the thing that really got me was that, you know, over the pandemic and throughout, you know, the pandemic plus our jobs as social media managers being online all the time and just the state of the world it is today, I think that we did a really great job at Spry cultivating and caring for each other and making sure that all of our proper boundaries were in place, that we were mentally healthy, that, you know, we were encouraging each other to create healthy habits. So I have been working for well over a year of building healthy habits of exercise, of living enough time to cook a good meal, of being present with my husband, of, you know, walking my dog and getting these like good routines in place. And I'm to a place mentally and physically where I just feel so great. But then I was there at like 10:30 at night, and my bedtime generally is between 10 and 10:30. And I'm just like, I'm not going to be able to finish this until midnight. And
I'm not doing it.
Yeah, and I had already skipped. I had already, you know, the thing about, you know, addiction or kind of problematic behavior is when you skip out on things that you normally would never skip out on to do your thing. So I had already skipped out on dinner with my husband. I had actually just like made dinner and been like, I have to go work right now. And there's other things that I had skipped out on, and then I was still doing it, and I was like, I'm gonna have to be up till midnight to do this. And then I was like, no.
And for what? For what?
For what? Yeah. And so I just was like, this is not healthy. And the other thing too is that the nature of Instagram has changed so much that I have been feeling very, you know, I want to explore reels. I want to experiment. I want to create content. And if you spend all your time, you know, it's a perfect balance, like that we talk about at Spry, right? You have to create really great content, but being present on the app is equally as important. But you can't just be present on the app and not create good content. You have to have both. And you can't create new content if you're constantly talking to, you know, forcing yourself into these weird conversations with people.
So is it easy for us to say now that the $1.80 Instagram strategy is outdated and bad for your mental health? Can you agree to that?
Yeah. I would rebrand it. I would give it a rebrand.
Okay. We've been talking about this a lot. Well, give me your rebrand on it.
Well, I think that we should call it the half-hour Instagram strategy.
Ooh. Okay. I love that. Can I explain then so once you kind of passed off the baton, because you did it a couple days, one day where you did quite a few comments, one day where you did 9 comments, one day where you gave up, you know, and then, and so when I took the baton, I was like, okay, so if I was going to do this my way, what would I do? And so I stuck to the 30 minutes because that's what you told me. You said this should be time bound, not like amount of content or amount of comments bound. So 30 minutes. And so I said, okay, 30 minutes. So what I did within that 30 minutes is the first thing I did is I went through our grid. So we had posted, you know, we post a few times a week, and we usually put a little bit of ad money behind the posts. And so first thing I did is I went through like the last few weeks of our content, and I went through the people who engaged with our content. And if any of them were people who didn't follow us yet, I went to their profile, and if it was a public profile, I scanned their bio. I scanned the kind of content that they're putting out first to be like, okay, who is this person who, when they saw our content, was motivated to act, right? Who is this person? It helps me to understand. And once I started going through this, I remembered the point. Right?
Yeah.
The point of this whole strategy really, in my opinion, is to get to know your community, right? It's to get to know the actual people who could be your followers and are your followers already. So I went through, I scanned these people's, if there was a place where I thought it makes sense for us to leave some sort of comment, I would like a few of their posts. And then if I saw something that made sense, I would engage with that with a more formal comment, like, especially if it was a business, because we're business to business more. So especially if it was a business page, I would, look at their products. I would comment on their products. I would, kind of go from there. So that's one piece that I did with that 30 minutes. There's a few other things that I did. What about you? When you did some of it that was time bound, how did you use that time?
Well, I still looked at hashtags, but the way I did that, instead of doing hashtag research, because there's so many, it's kind of, there are all these strategies to kind of game the system that always pop up with anything on the internet. So it used to be that there would be hashtag generators and all these different ways of hashtagging things and trying to game the system. I feel like that's not, hashtags are still important, but they're not quite as important as again, looking and getting to know the people that follow you and that you want to follow. What I did is I went to our just explore page, because the algorithm is seeing who we're talking to, who's talking to us. It's looking at, time or space, location, themes. And so the explore page was actually, I went to the explore page and I skimmed the explore page. I would see different posts that Instagram is like, oh, you would like this. And some of the best posts that I thought were the most engaging and intriguing, actually the person didn't even use any hashtags. So I wouldn't have even found them in the first place if I hadn't have just gone to the explore page. So I used the explore page. I found posts and content that really just made sense for Spry to talk about. What I also did is when I did find comment or posts that were engaging and made sense for us, I would look at the hashtags that they used in the explore page. I would just look at the hashtags that they used and then explore off of their post. And so that just kind of made it just kind of used the algorithm, like what the algorithm was giving me, and exploring within the explore page. So that was what I did.
Okay, so that's a good option. So we can look at the people engaging with our own content, and if they're not following us, we can engage with them to try to deepen that relationship. We can use the explore page to find things based more on the algorithm than on hashtags, because I think that is part of the outdated system is just using a hashtag really is so surface level compared to the depth that can be found in other ways.
Yeah.
Another thing that I did during my 30 minutes is, and it can work for people who have local businesses, right? It might not be as useful for e-commerce or that kind of thing, but I took the city that we're based in and I went to that location tag and I started scrolling through that location tag content. And if it was a business, because we're business to business again, if it was a business who tagged in our city, then I would engage with their content. If it made sense, I would follow them. And I commented, again, something substantive, right? If you just say, that's really cool, I love it, thumbs up, fire emoji, then what's going to happen? They're going to like your comment, right?
Right.
They might say thank you.
Right.
But for instance, there's one that I just found that's a business called The Original Bag of Poo. Okay. It is actually a company that makes brown cotton candy. And so it's it's kind of a fun little shtick. And I've seen them at the store, like at a lot of the local grocery stores here. And then I saw that they were tagged in Vancouver, Washington. So, I commented, I've seen your stuff in Chuck's Produce before. Are you based in Vancouver, Washington? Yep. And, they're like, yep. And so we engaged in a real way and they followed us afterwards. Right.
Yeah.
So location tags was another way that I ended up doing that. The last strategy that I used in this was sharing people's content to our stories. So if throughout all of the searching that I was doing, because I did some via the Explore page as well, if I found something that I thought would really appeal to our audience, then I would share it to our stories. But one thing that people sometimes forget to do when they're sharing people's content to stories is tagging them as well.
Yeah, so they can share it.
Exactly, because you get a notification right in your DMs, in your inbox, if you tag somebody in the story. So even if you share the content and it's that person's content, the engagement rate would significantly increase if you would tag them in the story as well.
Totally.
That led to some really great interactions in DMs as well. So
yeah, and it's so funny to me in a lot of tech world, in the tech world and like the internet world and all that. Sometimes we trip over ourselves trying to game the system or invent things or do things when it really comes down to bringing value to people. Like, and I did the same thing. I would, in my research, I would find some really great content. And it's like, I'm not going to go and make similar content for Spry, right? I'm going to just share this person's content to our page because it is actually really useful. I would save it. And then that person, because of the algorithm, it's really great to share their stuff. It's really great to save their stuff. And they get that little like sparkle of like joy that someone else liked their stuff and found it valuable. Like it actually works. So that is just, it's kind of like whenever we could kind of get up here in our heads, it's like, let's bring it down. Like we're just literally trying to help people, like be on the internet and bring value. That's it. So
if we're going back to the hypothesis so that your mom can give us kudos for actually doing an experiment.
Right.
So if we're going back to the experiment outline, so what we did is we did change what we were doing, right? We changed the method and really just made it 30 minutes of focused engagement with a few different avenues that we could do that engagement. And when we did that, over that week or so, we gained about 20 followers. So that's 80% less than when we did it the first time with these 90 comments. However, I felt not depleted. Like my personal energy, which is very valuable, your personal energy, which is very valuable, did not feel depleted. We had some actual real conversations with people within comment sections and DMs. And 20 followers over a week is great for a small business. We get tricked by some of these big channels that your growth has to be huge in order to be valuable. Yep. But when you think about helping people and staying healthy, a small amount of growth every week is what we're really trying to accomplish.
Oh, absolutely. We always use that metaphor for social media. I don't think we've talked about it lately, but it is, working out, getting that 6-pack. You can't get a 6-pack in 7 days using Gary V's $1.80 method. You're just not. No one will. No one would. You do it over 6 months or a year of a little bit every single day, and that is just like social media. So, yeah.
I'm leaving space if any other insight comes from you because I love when you talk and when you get on these things. So,
well, one other tip I was going to mention, side to the side is really thinking about what, not just like your product, services, and your values. Like you have your product, services, your brand values, and those are all very important things to talk about and engage with people about. Your work style, you're working from home. We're a lot of moms on our team, so there's a lot of like topics we could talk about in conversation. But thinking about what other conversations you want to be part of. So one of the hashtags that I searched for was #TheSocialDilemma. Because we want to talk about social media and social media for good and why social media is so damaging. We're talking about the emergence of social media and its effects on society. And the social dilemma was one of our best most well-received blog posts. And people are talking about it still. And so if you hashtag the social dilemma, you can start talking about this film very quickly with people that want to talk about the same thing. And so I think really thinking about not just like who you are and what you do, but thinking about like what conversations you want to be a part of, and trying to figure out, okay, is that a hashtag? Is that an event? Is it an online event? Is it, where are the people that are talking about this thing, and where do I find them? So that's another tip.
Okay. Well, I'm really glad you gave up. I think that what we went through and the discussion we're having now is more valuable than had we followed the experimental method to a T.
Right.
Even if it meant we would have gained 40 more followers for right now, and for what? For what?
Yeah. For what? I mean, that's kind of, isn't that the struggle of the entrepreneur? You want to be gritty and get through it. And I really hate trying to do an experiment and then bailing on it. It just inside me and ingrained in me, I'm just like, I want to do it again because I want to see the results. Like I want to see from a curiosity perspective, like what would happen. But then, I weighed the pros and cons of not doing it, and I just decided, what, this is for me professionally, and I feel like for Spry professionally, it's not like Spry would be better served if I used most of that time figuring out how to make amazing reels. Mm-hmm. Like, to be honest, with Instagram's new algorithms. So, just being like aware and reading the room. I think that's the lesson, is read the room. Like, you can try it again, but also read the room. Like, will this still work? Maybe it shouldn't work, and that's okay.
Okay. So before we close, our last question of the day is going to be posed to me today. So, Adrienne, you want to help us close this up?
Yes. How is your relationship with social media lately, Lacey?
Okay, I've been doing okay. I've been doing pretty good. I went back and I was reading my my journal from earlier in this year, and I forgot that there was a point in this year where I was only getting on social media in the evening, like after I put my kids to bed. And to me, all of a sudden that blew my mind. I was like, I was really not getting on at all during the day, because my most often time of using social media is really when I go to the bathroom, right? Like I'll go to the bathroom and I'll end up being in there like maybe 10 minutes just kind of scrolling through Instagram and my personal one, checking on this client's one, checking on that client's one, and I'm not sure, you ever like eat so much good food over a month-long period and all of a sudden nothing sounds good to you anymore, and like you just kind of need a reset?
Yes.
That's kind of how I feel about Instagram right now, is like, it's not bringing me that dopamine. It's not really bringing me any excitement when I open it up over and over again. And then I read that entry of like, my goal today is to not get on social media until my kids are in bed in the evening. And I was like, oh, what a good solution. So I think I'm going to try limiting a little bit of my daily social media activity for a while, because I want to get a taste for it again. I want to get excited about it. And when I find myself not getting excited about it, and maybe like I almost feel like an expectation, like Instagram is supposed to make me feel good every time I open it, and it's not right now. And so I have this sense of entitlement that is not being fulfilled whatsoever. And so I can tell that means that there's a little bit of a rollback that needs to happen. So that's what I'm gonna try to do over the next couple weeks.
Yeah. I've been feeling a little bit burned out on Instagram myself, or just actually social media. But like you said, I have been limiting myself. I've been doing a lot more structured boundaries around what I'm doing with my time, and it's really great. But part of me is also like, how do I find the joy in this again? So
I think it's going to be you making reels.
I know. I actually just made a reel that is amazing.
Yes.
It's on my personal page if anybody wants to go see it. It's about a bird and me having a conversation.
Okay, I can't wait. I'll go see it. Well, thank you, of course, Adrienne, for your time. I love being able to have these conversations. Thank you, those of you who are listening in. I hope you found this valuable. Our statement is the $1.80 Instagram strategy. It's outdated. It's bad for your mental health. Try the half-hour Instagram strategy, where you can actually get to know your community of people, where you can have real meaningful conversations, where you can be in awe of other creators creating great content that you can share. Value, and boundaries.
Yep. Value and boundaries. Love it.
Okay. All right, Adrienne, have a good rest of your day. I'm going to go watch your bird reel. Everybody else, keep learning, keep using social media for good, and we will talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This SprySpace podcast is brought to you by Spry Social Media Marketing, Digital Marketing Agility, edited by Chad Hinman and executive produced by Lazy Fought.